Hello, all you tiny little people that live within the confines of my computer. My name's Finn, and welcome back to the show where I don't shut up, because I never do that. Today, I'm going to be talking about my favorite villain. My favorite villain from anything, whether it be movies, TV, comics, just whatever it could be, gaming. My favorite villain, which is Ultron. So, anybody who's a big comic nerd is going to love that already, because there's a lot to know about Ultron through comics. However, if your introduction to that character was the MCU film Age of Ultron, or the MCU adjacent cartoon from the 2010s, Avengers Assemble, you probably don't understand, because you're probably thinking of a very different, very not good character. So, let's get into it, shall we? I'm going to start with some history about Ultron, and then I will get into some recent stuff, get into adaptations, get into the stuff that I adore about the character. I don't necessarily have notes for this one. However, I did talk with my illustrator a while ago, like 2 or 3 days ago, about Ultron for a long time. So I will be looking at that, but for the most part, this will be improv. This will just be me talking, and then every once in a while, I will be Googling a little bit of information because I don't want to be wrong. For example, when did Ultron make his first appearance? Because I know it was Avengers 50-something, I just don't remember which one or what year that would have been. July of 1968 in the Avengers number 54. Where I'm pretty sure that was Ultron 5, because there's some Ultron lore, and we're gonna get into that. Set this off to the side. Okay. So, little history lesson. In 1968, Avengers number 54, there was a building story about a Legion of Doom-esque crime syndicate happening for the Avengers, where a bunch of their former villains were working together, and there was a special guy, a guy in a purple cloak. Who could he be? So, that guy forced Jarvis to give him information. Fine, dandy, whatever. Then it's revealed that that guy was Jarvis, which is crazy. Then it's revealed that that guy wasn't Jarvis, but instead somebody who had brainwashed Jarvis. And that person wasn't a person, but a robot, an AI, calling himself Ultron 5. And to be fair, in Ultron's first appearance, he captures the Avengers and is going to get rid of them forever. That doesn't work out, and they get out of it and all that, blah, 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 blah. But as a first appearance, capturing and almost beating all of them, whilst tricking people into thinking that their butler was the bad guy, there's some stuff there. It's kind of interesting how, like, that's what the introduction to this character was so much deceit and so much, like, slightly past what you're expecting. Like, oh, it's the butler, haha, it's always the butler. But then it wasn't him, and it was a robot. Okay, well, where'd the robot come from? And that's what we're getting into next. So Ultron had a 5 by his name, and in his next few appearances, that number would change. Ultron 6, 7, 8, and it would go on. We'll get into more notable versions of Ultron as we go forward. But to start, we're going to talk about his origin, what he comes from, what he is. After a bit, we get to learn that he's not some random robot, and he wasn't created by a former villain. He was actually created by one of the founding members of the Avengers, specifically Hank Pym's Ant-Man. And he wasn't created to be this big, articulate robot that moves around like a person and fights. He was created to fix problems. He was created to be a safety net, a safety blanket, if you will, of the world, and to figure out through science and math and things that you can study how to fix the world, how to rid the world of its issues, how to rid it of its violence, how to handle all of that. And as Ultron started figuring out what that meant, it didn't put together an algorithm that says, if we get rid of this, we get rid of the bad. Well, that is what it did, but it didn't do it in that way. It wasn't like, oh, well, if we take away this rule, this will happen, or whatever. Ultron instead came up with the idea that I can fix the world and get rid of all of the issues, all of the injustice, all of the hate, all of the damage, all of the problems can go away if I get rid of humans. Which is a really interesting idea. An AI that is specifically programmed to figure out how to fix the world, figures out how to fix the world, but it's kind of morally wrong to do the thing it figures out will fix it. And I think that's part of what makes Ultron so incredibly interesting to me. Because it's not just robot that wants to kill everything because it's a robot and things are people, but it's a robot that wants to kill everything because it was designed to make the people not have issues. And the one way we know that people won't have problems anymore is if they're dead. If I kill all of the people who murder, there's no more murderers. If I kill all the people who rape, there's no more rape. If I kill all the people who do acts of battery, there's no more battery being done. So if I want to get rid of all of the crimes, all of them, I just got to get rid of the people. And it is so interesting to see how that's written originally versus how it's written in more modern depictions, which we will get into here in a bit. But it's so interesting to think about, especially with how times change and crime rates go up and then they go down and then they go up more, and then we see new things happening that we've never experienced as people. And the idea of an AI trying to figure out how to fix all of that, it might say to get rid of everybody. That's a theoretical probability, which is terrifying. But back to timeline. Ultron figures out that and then sort of forces Hank Pym to forget. He brainwashes his creator to not remember making him. And in doing that, Ultron is kind of a huge threat just based off of that. Hank Pym is one of, if not the smartest men on the planet. At this point, it's him, Reed Richards, and Iron Man. It's that's the three: Hank, Reed, Tony, and that's the three smart guys. It's he outgrew his creator, who's the second or third smartest person on the planet, pretty quickly, and brainwashed him to not know that he existed. It's pretty fucking cool. Also, I won't talk about this too much, because I'll forget talking about other things, but something that I really enjoy is that Ultron is all about having no emotion and no thoughts and just being pure statistic, right? But then his design isn't minimalist, you know what I mean? He has an angry mug that he made. He makes the way he looks after Ultron won. So the fact that he always looks angry is a testament to the character to me, because Ultron doesn't feel emotion and doesn't get caught up and blah 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 blah, but he does. He very much does. The first time that he loses in the Avengers is because of him having too much emotion. He gets angry with the Vision, and that leads to his demise. And that's a running thing that continues to happen. A lot of versions of this character fail because they are not what they say. Ultron is always no emotion, no personal wants. Specifically, I'm doing this statistically, and I'm doing it because I was designed to do it. And parts of that backstory kind of fall apart whenever you put Ultron under a microscope, because he gets mad, he gets frustrated, and in times really later, he has genuine emotion that isn't just anger and frustration. He gets sad. He gets lost. He feels almost, for a moment later, we'll talk about, he almost gets some sort of happiness and closure, and it gets pulled away from him. But we'll get into that. Ultron is super interesting to me because, like, the whole idea of making an AI that is smarter than you and brainwashes you to forget you made it is terrifying. An AI being like, statistically, the only way to fix all the problems on the planet is to kill all the people. Terrifying. And in, like, the 60s and 70s, of course, he wasn't too scary. Like, me looking back on it, I wasn't alive in the 60s and 70s, but, like, because there's so many more things that are way more terrifying than this, like, 60s comic book character, he kind of isn't very frightening then. But he becomes my favorite villain. He's so goddamn cool. Anyway, let's fast forward a little bit. Now let's talk about upgrades, because Ultron doesn't stay the same guy the whole time. His mentality's the same, his programming's the same, but there are some small key differences. Specifically his body changing, because when one gets destroyed, he has to make another. He doesn't necessarily die, he just kind of... Think of it almost... Because obviously it's like a tech thing, and his brain is not physically a brain, so it, like, goes back and forth. But think of it almost like a possessing thing. Because when Ultron is in control of something, it's pretty much possessed. And it's kind of fun to me. I like that. That's how I like to look at the way that he does stuff. That's not a stated thing. That's not a canonical thing. I just like to think of it as the tech he's taking being corrupted in a way. But Ultron 6 happens, and he has an adamantium body. Now, if you know anything about comics, or superheroes in general, really, you'll know adamantium is a big deal. It's what the Wolverine is made out of. You know, his skeleton. And Ultron makes his body out of that. You know, that thing that can't break. And that adds a new layer to this character, because before he was super smart. He was, like, smarter than everybody, and he had the tactics to handle everything. But he wasn't really a tremendous fighter. And he gets his ass kicked by the Vision. But then he gets this body that kind of can't break. Obviously, they find ways to get rid of it, and blah, 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 because it's a comic book, you have to have the heroes win, blah, 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 blah. We'll get into that later, too. But he has upgrades that occur. He makes the body out of adamantium. He gets knives. He gets this big photon beam that becomes a big deal for him. He gets blasters. He gets the ability to fly. He gets these big gauntlets. He creates a mech. He creates a giant version of himself. He creates armies of himself. Blah, 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 blah. But he doesn't stay the same. And I really like that, because too much in comics is it a thing of, like, oh, well, what's a good example? Spider-Man. Spider-Man beats up the Shocker. 2 weeks later, the Shocker has nothing different, and Spider-Man beats him up again. Then a month later, Shocker shows up, and Spider-Man beats him up again. And then a year later, Shocker shows up, Spider-Man beats the shit out of him. And that's kind of a recurring thing in comics. But with Ultron, it's a little different, because every time he shows up, he's different. He acts differently, or he looks different, or he has a new piece of tech, or he has an armor, or he's working with somebody new. There's like an increase in what is happening with him that I really appreciate, because it makes it where you're not going to read 2 Ultron comics that are the exact same. Whereas, like, I could find 2 Green Goblin comics that are really, really similar. I could find 2 Joker comics that are really, really similar. But when it comes to Ultron, he's kind of written differently when he shows up through the plot. His character changes a couple times, but typically it's like every decade there's something that changes, which is not exactly the same. But I find it to be extremely interesting that they introduce this character and then they properly upgrade and change the character physically and statistically and, like, strategy-wise. And I just think that's really interesting to see. We get a little bit more into who and what Ultron is, in the sense that in this period of him going from Ultron 5 to 6, and 6 to 7, and 7 to 8, and blah, 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 and onward and forward and whatever, we figure out little bits and pieces more about him. We figure out more about the emotions that he has, because sure, he's frustrated with the world and he's trying to get rid of people, but we also get little bits and pieces into how he feels about Hank Pym, about wanting to kill his father, wanting to get rid of this creator, and wanting to... because his mission to wipe out everyone on Earth is a pretty simple one. Like, obviously it's crazy and it's evil, but it's like it's a simple, easy to follow thing, and if that was his only plan, you can't argue that he has bad morals because he's just following an AI programming. However, he has a very deep hatred for his father, to his creator, to Hank Pym. And that is the thing that drives this character past good villain to my favorite, is his relationship with Hank Pym. Because it's not just, oh, I hate Ant-Man for being Ant-Man. It's more so in, he created me and now I'm suffering. Because Ultron doesn't openly express that, he doesn't openly cry or anything, but it's very obvious that Ultron doesn't enjoy his existence. He's not happy. And in versions of the story where he succeeds, he doesn't get anything out of succeeding. In Marvel's What If, whenever Ultron deletes all of the people, he doesn't know what to do. He can't continue. He deletes other planets, still not feeling anything. Because that's not... like, that's his derogative, that's what he wants to do from his, like, AI, but it's not what his emotions want from him. And we'll get into more of what he wants past that here in just a minute. Not too long. That's not like a late wait. That'll be in just a minute. I want to focus really quickly on specifically his stuff with Ant-Man. Because he hates Ant-Man, he wants Ant-Man to die, he wants to be better and beyond his father. But, as far as I'm aware, and I'll look it up, as far as I'm aware, he's never actually killed Hank. Has Ultron killed Hank Pym? Because I feel like when he did that, it was in a very recent comic. Right? Right? Am I wrong here? Yeah, okay, so he didn't succeed in killing Hank until 2015, which I know what you're thinking, oh, well, heroes always win, but, like, no, they kind of don't in comics. Like, Batman's died probably 20 times, Superman's died 15, 20 times, Spider-Man's died 40, 50, 60 times, Iron Man's died a handful. Heroes die in comic books because they just do the thing of, like, oh, well, they're not dead. And, like, Ultron comics sometimes have time travel and whatnot in them. So the idea of him being around for 75, 85, 95, 05, 25... it's like fucking almost 60 years of Ultron being there, but not succeeding in that goal. Until he does. But, like, he wants Hank dead. That's, like, his personal goal, beyond the derogative of the AI. And that's really intriguing. It's really intriguing to me. Anyway, it's time to talk about what he wants. What does Ultron actually want in this world, beyond the derogative, beyond getting rid of Hank and beyond getting rid of humanity? What does he want? What is it that he strives for on a personal level that builds him into being my favorite villain? What about this character pushes him so far above everybody else in my eyes? More than anything, Ultron wants a family. He doesn't want it in the way that everybody else does, where it's, I want to find this person to settle down with and have kids and da-da-da-da-da. No. He wants his family. He wants to make his own family. He wants to program them and have them be subservient to him, which is really fucked. Like, it's sweet and kind of adorable that this AI so deeply wants companionship. It so deeply wants love. It so deeply wants affection. It so deeply wants care. But it's so afraid and so egotistical and so insecure that it feels the need to put a failsafe in all of his creations, that they have to rebuild him if he dies, that they have to take care of him, and it's not a choice. It's not part of their love for him. It's a forced thing. And that's the parts of Ultron that are the most evil to me, is he wants to build this family, and that's great, but he's not building a healthy family. He's building people based on people that already exist, and he's treating them pretty fucking horribly. He makes the Vision as his son, and that doesn't work out, which is an exact, shadow of Hank Pym making Ultron. Ultron tries to make his own child, which turns against him just the same. And it's this weird circle of life thing. Then, Ultron tries to make himself a wife. He does that on multiple occasions. Typically, he does this and he tries to use the mind and the feelings and the brain and the everything that has to do with Hank Pym's wife, Janet. Did I just say... Hold up. I had to pause for a second because I said Janet, and somehow I, in my head, didn't hear Janet, because I said Janet, but in my head, I feel like I said something else. I don't know what, but it wasn't her name. But yeah, he tries to make a robotic version of Hank's wife, of his mother, in a way. And it's a very weird Oedipus-style thing, right? But that's not where the villainy comes in. That's not where the interest comes in. Because yes, he's building a robotic wife. Yes, he has his made son. He also tries to take Wonder Man and make himself, if I'm not mistaken, a brother. It could be another son. I can't remember. I'll look into that here in a second. Okay, so Wonder Man is the one who becomes... Well, his consciousness makes Vision. And then Hank Pym is his dad. Janet is his mom and the person that he tries to turn into his wife, and blah 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 blah. Joe Costa is that robot's name. Ultron tries to make a second son at some point, but I can't really remember who. He also tries to make a secondary mate based off of Mockingbird, I think. But some of those are logistics and not super important to this specific plot. But whenever it comes to Ultron trying to make these people into his family, he tries to make a son, he tries to make a wife, all these things, and people start, wondering why. People start asking questions. Why are you like this? Why is this what you want? Why is he like this? Why is this what he wants? Blah, 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 blah. Until Hank Pym figures it out. Hank Pym figures it out, and he has to explain himself, and he's broken. Ultron is the way he is because... The way that Wonder Man's mind is what makes Vision. The way that Joe Costa is very much a Janet Van Dyne. Ultron isn't just the son of Hank Pym. He is the consciousness, the mind, the thoughts, the feelings of Hank Pym, of Ant-Man. And that is where he becomes my favorite villain, is because he's not Venom. He's not inverted Spider-Man. He is not an inversion of Ant-Man. He is who Ant-Man is, just without the morality. He's if you took Ant-Man and got rid of his morals, you'd have Ultron. And that is why he's my favorite. That is what makes him my favorite. That is why I love Ultron. And Hank Pym is broken by this. Hank Pym is hurt. He is depressed. He is disappointed in himself. This is what leads to Hank breaking. This is what leads to a lot of damage to Hank's psyche, and some stories later will heavily touch on that. But Hank is a failure in this situation. And he's right whenever he thinks that, because he failed. He didn't create an AI that's going to protect the world. He created an AI that's going to destroy it. He didn't make himself a son. He made himself a copy. And a lot of damage has happened because of that. And there are periods where Hank continues to be Ant-Man or becomes the Yellow Jacket or whatever. But there's periods where he just stops. There's periods where he doesn't do anything as a hero. There's periods where he works at a desk. There's periods where he won't even do that. Hank is shattered by who Ultron is. Because it's his greatest failure. Because it's his greatest success. He succeeded in making an AI that will take care of all these things. But in succeeding, he fails at being a hero. In succeeding in that, he fails at protecting everybody. And that's what makes it so incredibly interesting. Because through all of Hank's faults, he is a good person. Through all of his mess-ups and all of his mishaps, he is trying to help. And a version of him with no morals, his exact thoughts, his exact ideas, is the biggest threat the world has ever known, just because it's missing his moral code. And if you strip away the cold exterior of metal, and you strip away the lack of morals, that is Hank Pym. And that kills Hank. Rightfully so, but it's depressing, it's gross. It almost makes a first-time reader, instead of feel sad, angry with Hank. It almost makes Hank a villain. It almost vilifies him and puts him in such a dark light, because now you have to think, okay, well, if Ultron thinks like you do you also think you could fix everything by killing everyone? And that's a big deal that comes up in later stories, because, yeah, that's how that works. It's so gross, and it's so cool to me. I love it. It's also brought up a lot throughout the history of the Avengers and throughout the history of Ant-Man that he is kind of an insecure mess. Ant-Man has problems processing that he's not the best. He has issues processing that he's not the smartest. He has issues processing that he's not the strongest. He's not the fastest. He's not the best at really anything. He's tremendous in every field he steps into. He's a tremendous chemist. He's a tremendous physical scientist. He's tremendous with biology. He's tremendous with tech. He's tremendous with everything he tries, but he's not the best, and it kills him. And it makes him so realistic. It makes him such a genuine person. He's demasculated and dehumanized by other Avengers who are so much, quote-unquote, better than him. He sees someone like Hulk or someone like Thor or someone like Vision who's a billion times stronger than him, and it hurts him. Because he tries to be the strongest. He tries to be the smartest, but he's on a team with fucking Iron Man. And because of that, he loses pieces of himself due to that insecurity and due to that dread and due to that, sadness. Hank is a human character because his fuck-ups don't feel falsified. His fuck-ups don't feel like something written by a director or by a writer. They feel like things that humans do. Hank is insecure, so he verbally slips up and says mean shit. Hank goes on a PTSD spiral and freaks out and develops a secondary personality, which is realistic. And not only is it realistic, it also fits with other people on his team, like the Hulk, whose entire thing is that he has two. And it sends Hank down these spirals. He's so genuine of a character, and whenever he is perfectly opposed to Ultron, it shows how he's so realistic and he's so modern, and how Ultron is so terrifyingly what our future holds, especially the further and further we get into the 2020s, and AI is becoming such a terrifying thing with the quickness and the lack of time and effort needed to create things with it. it's fucking terrifying to think about. Because, like, I don't think we're on the verge of having a robot that's gonna wipe out humanity, but fuck, I can't promise that's not possible. It's very frightening looking at current things that occur with the lens that media has given us. Anyways, time to get into Age of Ultron stuff, and then we'll get into Rage of Ultron after that. That's probably where I'll end it. But Age of Ultron stuff, yeah, baby, not the movie. We'll probably, okay, I'll talk about Age, we'll talk about Rage, and then we'll talk about a couple adaptations of the character. So, to begin with Age of Ultron, Ultron wins. He wipes out the world. He kills almost all of the heroes. He wipes out millions and billions of fucking people, and he wins. And then, I'm very much giving the cliff note to the story. It is one of my favorite comics ever. I would really like to own it. It's a comic that I genuinely would love to own, like a paperback copy of, just like the full thing. That'd be pretty cool. That would definitely be one that's like on display up here or something. I love that fucking book. But blah 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 blah. Ultron wins, and it has the single coldest image I think I've ever fucking seen. Give me a minute to find it. I'm not even gonna pause because I don't know. This could take 3 seconds. It could take a couple minutes. We shall see. Depends on how slow my things want to be. Ah, yes, this one. One of the coldest comic images ever. This is a cover. This isn't like hidden in the... This is the cover of the book. Him just grabbing Iron Man and Captain America, the leaders, by the scruff while stepping on the Hulk and staring at Hawkeye. This is the coldest aura-farming picture of any comic book character, period. There's some other faces in there, too. Spider-Man's there, Thor's there. There's some people that are cooked, chat. Absolutely cooked. Wolverine's there. But he absolutely cooks them. Cooks them all. They're all cooked. Put to sleep, done. Dead. Out of the way. And that's my favorite, like, maybe actually my favorite comic run, period. I love that fucking comic. But that happens, he cooks them all, and then a few people are sent back in time. Let me double check because I don't want to use the wrong people. Okay, so I was correct. Wolverine and the Invisible Woman go back in time, and their main goal is to kill Hank Pym before he can make Ultron. That way Ultron does not take over, Ultron does not destroy everything. And they pretty easily succeed considering the Wolverine is the best at what he does, and what he does ain't pretty, and blah, 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 blah. So they succeed in the takeout, if you will, of Hank Pym. And it's kind of gross to watch, not because it's super gory. It's really light gore, honestly, in comparison to some Wolverine stuff. But it's like... It's gross to watch because he doesn't really know what's happening. He just getting murdered. But what happens is they kill him and they go back to the future. The movie. And the world isn't better. The world isn't better. Without Hank, the world's actually worse. Even considering Ultron took over and won in that timeline. In the world where Hank doesn't make Ultron and he dies early, bad things happen. Terrible things happen. And the world becomes even worse than before. And due to this, once again, they go back in time to try to... Wolverine goes back in time and stops Wolverine. He stops a version of himself from killing Hank. And then they get into it and blah, 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 blah. And then they fix it. Basically, Hank puts like a failsafe sort of thing into his Ultron programming whenever he makes it. Basically making it where Ultron will exist and will do X, Y, and Z, but he won't get to the point of taking over the world. He won't get to the point of killing everybody. That stuff is not a thing that he will be able to do via his, like, new programming. And then they go back to the future one more time and everything's okay. The world's back to normal, everything's alright. But Hank Pym seems broken. And this isn't the first time he seemed broken, it's not the first time he seemed lost due to the whole Ultron thing. But it is the worst we've seen him. Until he has a very beautiful monologue to himself. One of the most heartwarming feels I've just ever gotten from any sort of medium. Especially something that there wasn't, like, audio to, like, boost the feelings of. But Hank puts together that, sure, he fucked up. Sure, Ultron happened. Sure, he ruined his... He did, like, all these bad things, right? And he realizes that Ultron, a creation of his, destroys the world and kills fucking everybody. And that's gross and that sucks. But then he thinks about it, and he realizes, sure, that happened. But in the world where I died, it was worse. And he uses that as a boost in himself, because he realizes that without him, the world is worse. And that him being there has meaning. And that's fucking beautiful. It's so beautiful. It is one of my favorite moments in any medium at all. It's so good. Because he realizes he matters. He realizes that he's important, that he's worth something, and that's beautiful. As a young boy, he wanted to do creative things, but then he got caught up in the fields that he ended up going into, right? He got caught up in being a proper scientist and being a super genius, and that worked for him, but it got rid of parts of who he was. It got rid of parts of who he is. His famous Pym particles happened pretty much because he was goofing around, a thing that he hasn't been allowed to do forever, because he had to be so serious. And he goes back to being this creative, fun guy. And it's some of the best writing of any character I've ever experienced. It's so fucking good. So good. So good. Now to get into Rage of Ultron, which is somewhat of a continuation. It's very confusing. Timeline-wise, it doesn't really add up. A couple characters are, like, reversed in, like, in the character arcs and whatnot. It's very weird. But it is a good story. I don't think it's quite as good as Age of Ultron. Honestly, I don't think it's half as good, but that's because I think that book is just fucking tremendous. But Rage of Ultron is a very weird story. And I won't be going over the middle of the story, because it's mostly action stuff. It's sort of like a one-off, not like one single issue, but it's like a one-off story. It comes back to matter later, but for the most part, it's like one set little bit of time. I'm going to go over the beginning, and I'm going to go over the ending. And then we'll get into some adaptations, then we'll be done with this week's video. To begin, in Rage of Ultron, there's a big situation happening, and blah, 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 blah. And they're talking about AIs, and the Vision is an AI, and blah, 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 blah. And then Hank expresses how he doesn't view AI as life. He doesn't view robots as people. He doesn't view AI as life. He doesn't view them as meaningful. And he expresses that to Vision, which gets a pretty negative reaction out of both Vision and Sam Wilson, who is at this point Captain America. And obviously they're not happy with him for that, but we'll see where that leads. Then they get into a big battle with Ultron. And towards the end, it gets to the point where Ultron's about to win. He's like one movement away from winning, but he talks to Hank. And he expresses what it is that he truly wanted all this time. Family, companionship, love. And he expresses that Hank hates him. Ultron says, "You hate me." And he goes on this rant about how much Hank is a bad parental, how much Hank despises him and wishes that he never existed. And Hank really solemnly, really harmed, says that that's not true. He expresses in his own way that he loves Ultron and wishes they could have had something other than this war, other than this fight, other than all this hate. And Ultron falters. Hearing this from his creator, hearing this from his dad, shakes him. He pauses. He doesn't do anything harmful. He waits. And that leads to his loss, that leads to his demise, and as he's about to be shot off into space, as he's about to leave, he's screaming, he's pissed, he's sad. And he says, "You lied. You lied to me." And he's ranting again about how Hank hates him, about how he lied, about he got his feelings so that he would lose, da-da-da-da-da. And all Hank has to say is that he didn't lie. And that's the end of the beginning of this. And it's fucking heartbreaking. It's heart-wrenching. It hurts. Because Hank, in saying that he wasn't lying and saying this, we now know, not only did Hank lie about not trusting AI and about not viewing it as people, but that he loves Ultron. He loves this fucking dude. This is his kid, and he wishes there was something that could be there, but there isn't. Fast forward some time, and we have another interaction between Ultron and Hank. And this is the one where, I don't know the exact quote, but this is the part I want to talk about, is he's explaining his backstory, and he's explaining, I am you. Your mind is what pushes me. Your thoughts, your ideas, your insecurities, that's what I am. And he's not saying this as a way of pushing Hank. He's saying it because it's true. Fundamentally, statistically, this is accurate. He is made up of Hank's brain. He is made up of his feelings. He's made up of his insecurities. Everything about him is what he is. And he expresses, I want to destroy all these people. You know why? Because you do too. And it's gross. And then the line that I love is, they're going back and forth. And this whole time, Hank isn't saying a lot, because he doesn't have a whole lot to say. Most of his stuff is like a sentence or so, whereas Ultron has a page of dialogue. And we get to a point where he, instead of saying I'm Ultron, we are Ultron is what he says. And it fucking hurts me. It makes me feel things, because he's right. He's correct. Like, he is Hank Pym. That's like, he's just Hank without the morals. It's the same thing. And then blah, 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 blah. We get to a point where the Vision is going to merge with Ultron, and then they're pretty much going to have him sacrifice himself to get rid of Ultron. And that's what the main goal is. And as Vision is doing this, Ultron is screaming, he is pleading, he is crying, he is begging his father to help him. Begging and pleading and crying, needing Hank to save him. And Hank does, because he does care, because he does love this creation of his. And that leads to Hank and Ultron merging into one and blasting off into space. I'm not going to get into what happens when they come back from space, because it's really boring, and I think it's a backstep for both characters. But I think that's like a very fun completion of their back and forth. Ultron's my favorite. And that's most of why. Let's get into adaptations. The 90s Avengers show is not very good. And that version of Ultron is not very good. Avengers Heroes of the Next Year. What's that one called? The one with their kids. I haven't seen it in forever. Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow. Heroes of Tomorrow. Yeah, Next Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow. The main villain of that is Ultron, and he's awesome. He succeeds in killing all of the adults. Their children are the ones that will go on to fight him. He puts the paws on the Hulk, puts the paws on Iron Man, kills Iron Man, kills everybody, puts the fucking grips on the Hulk and beats his ass, sends robotic versions of the Avengers to attack their kids, which has got to be crazy. It's really gross, and it's a good interpretation of him. It's a good interpretation of him. I like it. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure oh, my phone's being slow. Made by, right? Am I crazy? I think I'm right. Yes, okay. So in Heroes of Tomorrow, that was kind of the first time Ultron was created by Iron Man, and I don't hate Ultron being created by Iron Man. I think if it's a one-off like that, or if it's a comic one-shot, it's fine. But if it's the way that, like, millions of people are going to be introduced to the character, maybe keep it a little close to the original. Not like one-to-one, but similar. But that's a good interpretation. Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, best version of Ultron. Better than anything, period. He's just perfect. He shows up more than once, he has some, like, reoccurring stuff, he has some periods where he's a good guy, blah, 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 blah. Really interesting stuff with him and Hank, him and Janet, stuff with him and Stark, a lot of stuff with, like, the different reactions. He's very good. I love him. Avengers, Age of Ultron, the movie, it's my favorite superhero movie ever, I swear it is. I definitely like it. I hate that movie. That movie doesn't make me, like, that movie makes me genuinely sad, because it's my favorite villain, and there's nothing done with him at all. None of his backstory's there. He aura farms. His voice is great. His design's cool. Not quite as cool as any of the comic versions. Or not quite as cool as Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Or Heroes of Tomorrow. Better than that Avengers Assemble show, though. Dear Lord. But, like, you know, that movie kind of butchered him. And he was only around for an hour and 30 minutes. When he's like the one character for the Avengers where it makes sense for him to come back over and over and over and over, and he just never shows up ever again. Which sucks. Avengers Assemble, the cartoon, I don't like what they do with him. He's kind of just... He's not... If I'm not mistaken, he's not made by Stark or Ant-Man. Who made Ultron in the Disney XD show Avengers Assemble? Because I can't remember, because it's not good. Created by both of them. Yeah. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then his design's okay. His voice acting's okay. I don't have negatives there. It's just not a very... I don't know. Avengers Assemble's not very good. It's very much trying to make everything the MCU, which is boring to me, I think. But whatever. Oh, my arm. I got a tetanus shot yesterday, so my arm's real sore. But, what else? What If we talked about already. I like it. I like him. I like that he's Ultron in Vision's body. I like that he gets the stones and, like, wears the Ultron body over the Vision body. I think that's really interesting. Him with the stones is really fun. Him being this, like, multiversal level threat is really cool, because Ultron's my favorite. Of course, I want him to be a big threat. I love him. I love him. I feel like they should do something with him in, like, one of the two Avengers movies coming up. Because, like, Secret Wars, if it's anything like Secret Wars, the comics, either of the runs, you can have some weird time travel-y comeback bullshit. So I'd like to see Ultron back again, if they could do something with him other than him just stand there. But I am such a big fan of Ultron. He is my favorite. I love him. And that is about all I've got to say for today. Maybe later when I have an editor and such, I will sit down and make a longer video with a lot more visuals and audio and da-da-da-da-da. But currently, that's what I've got for you. I would like to thank you for your time, for your support, for your likes, for your comments, for all of the things that you guys have given me. Thank you so much for being around with the channel for such a long period. If you are new and this is your first time, or if you've been here over and over and over again, please subscribe. I am this close to 900 subs and about that close to 1,000 subs. I would very, very, very deeply appreciate it if you guys could help me get there. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. I love you guys. Stay safe, drink water, and have yourself a beautiful day. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.